guys. Phone in holder on this live. For anybody who watched my live on Thursday, or has watched it since, yeah, you may notice I had a little bit of technical blips, literally just as I was trying to start the live. So I decided to hold this, and that affected a couple of things, because I've held it before, you know, a while back, before I got the holder, and it worked okay. But what I did notice was, by holding it at various points, what I hadn't realised was I'd had my finger over the sound. Hi John, hi Karen. Yeah, I had my finger over the sound. So at one point somebody had put a comment on saying, "Oh, can't hear you, Mandy." But because I have occasionally had people message me as I'm doing live saying things like, "Can't hear you well," or "There's a technical issue." Sometimes it's from the other side, it's not just me. And then when I just thought, oh, I don't know about this, and the phone was feeling really hot. I don't know if anybody recalls, it was a really hot day. I did the live about 4 o'clock. I was in which is where I'm now, in the conservatory, and to be quite frank, it got warmer and warmer. By the time I got to the end of the live, I could feel beads of sweat starting to emerge. The phone was burning up, and I just thought, gosh, you know, really, this has got to end soon, because I'm going to be frazzled. And when I then look back on the content, so I was, you know, watching just see how it came across and that everything was working. There was a couple of occasions where I saw that a couple of minutes halfway through near the end, and that was down to me. I'd obviously got my finger over the volume somehow, so, you know, couldn't hear everything. So hopefully that won't happen today. So yeah, so welcome guys, welcome to people who are joining me right now, and for those who may join us at some point, or maybe watching this at a later point, you're all very, very welcome. So it's Sunday, 10th of May, and I'll tell you what I'm really noticing is the change in the weather. I think most people have noticed that. It's certainly very windy. Took Willow for a walk earlier on. Significantly cooler, a bit breezier. So yeah, definitely a change. If there's one thing we can guarantee, it's it's the British weather, isn't it? That's a constant. Constant is it's never that constant, so to speak. But yeah. Oh, hi Nicola. Hi Zed. So there you go. So, very British thing to do as well, isn't it, eh? Start with discussing the weather. So, something I want to sort of speak to you about today, connecting to courage, is the piece about courage and courageous conversations. Is, some of you may be aware, I've been developing a lot of work around what this means and linking it to you know, coaching and coaching conversations for quite a few months now. And a little while ago, and I'm still doing this, I'd put some questions to a number of coaches that I was wanting some thoughts, some reflections, some feedback on. And part of that information that they've been sharing, I'm actually going to be using some of it for an event that I'm running and facilitating in June. And I mean, that's something I can, you know, share at another point. But so this information, or a little bit of the information I'm going to share with you right now, I'm going to be utilising some of that and talking about some of the themes and so on. So one of the very obvious questions that I put to a number of coaches when I was sort of looking at courage and coaching and so forth, first question was, what does courage mean to you? And so I'm just going to share with you, literally, I'm going to read out some of the things that people fed back to me. So I've got on here the capacity, hi Neil, hi Mel, I've got the capacity to do the right thing, That's what some people said courage meant. Living in my truth even when it is difficult. Also, as I'm reading these out, I'm wondering whether any of these resonate with anybody who's watching. Being honest in all my relationships. Doing something that scares you. Makes you feel vulnerable, and also you may fail. But it also says being vulnerable and opening your heart to the world. That's also what some people said courage is. Other people said stepping outside of your comfort zone. Taking a risk. May include something that someone else does not want to hear. Taking responsibility for your thoughts and actions. Learning, growth, self-acceptance, being who you are. This is interesting about this, what courage means for a lot of people. And then there was also another piece I want to just sort of talk about, spend a bit more time on. Another one, it says standing by what is true, and it's a clarity around values, integrity and actions. Now that's the piece that struck me, standing by what is true, but particularly clarity around values, integrity and actions. Now, some of you may be aware, especially if you've been following any of my lives, I've been doing quite a bit of work around Brené Brown and her book Dare to Lead, and a lot of the things that are in there. And I've been spending a bit of time on the section around values and what that means. And she talks about a number of pieces, but a couple of key pieces she talks about is naming your values first, so identifying what they are, naming them, and then talks about creating very clear behaviours, is what she calls, around what it means to be living from those values. And so the first one, which is the naming them, I mean, I've done quite a lot of work with values, and so I can reel off, I know my values really well. In fact, each day I have at the moment a values grid, and I literally monitor my values on a scoring basis. So naughties, I've done absolutely nothing to live this day from this particular value that's important to me, or up to 10 would be I've done absolutely everything to live my life from these particular values. So as just mentioned, courage is having the opportunity to do something you haven't done before or shied away from. Being true to self and own values. So I'd be interested, Zed, as you're sharing there, to, if you like to think about, if you was to say name one value that you know is fundamental to you and that you can't live, literally, it feels like that, you can't be the person without that, what would be important? Now, in finding what those are, we often do things around, like, what we call peak times in your life. Sometimes you can do low times in somebody's life, because whether it was peak times or low times, chances are you will either be able to find out that there were values that were really present, which was why it was such a high, peak experience at the time, or you will find that the low experience meant that a lot of the values that were majorly important to the person were actually missing. They weren't being empowered. The values, if you like, were being squashed or stepped over in some way. Now, one of my peak experiences that I've sort of described is a number of times to various people in my life, is when I travelled Europe with one of my close friends, Julie. This is going back when I was sort of 21, 22. And when I think back to the peak experience of what the values were and what was important to me, and if it was the other way around, I'd be saying to people, and think about it for yourselves now, think of a peak experience and ask yourself, what was present, what was fundamental, what was it that was really getting you fired up? And things that I came up with on my travelling around Europe was things like connection with lots of people, lots of different people. I felt that really, I really enjoyed that. It was really fundamental. I also had a big value around learning, understanding. I mean, going into, places you don't know, meeting people you don't know, the learning and the openness that brings is fundamentally really key. And also with the piece around connecting, you know, the richer you experience you have when you're travelling is being able to ask people questions, get curious, you know, not making assumptions or judgments, being really open to, you know, to what people can share. Often you do at times need to rely on, you know, asking other people what they might know, particularly if they're locals, you know, to the local area. I mean, they can share with you some wonderful opportunities that you wouldn't necessarily know, you know, were present on the offbeat track, so to speak, while obviously staying, you know, safe at the same time. So there are a number of my values that say I would recognise that were in that peak experience. There was also, and I won't go into too much detail about what it entailed, but I remember, for example, the breakdown of a relationship, and I would call that one of my my low sort of experiences as opposed to the peak ones. Now, if we think about what wasn't present at the time, I was thinking about things like not being heard, feeling like my voice was being cut off or not being allowed. Connected to that was literally, I felt like I was disconnecting. So the opposite, you know, when I said about our connection is a massive value for me. So the disconnecting was you know, really sort of difficult and challenging. Also, I made a note of being sort of judged as well, and I think that's, if you like, for me, you know, the opposite is really somebody, you know, being able to stay open to what you have to say, who you are, what you're about. Hi, Roz. So that would have been where, you know, one of my values would have been just ignored or squashed for lots of reasons. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that Brené Brown talks about getting clear about what they are and naming them, but then interestingly, she talks about aligning and creating behaviours. Now, I said earlier on, I have been monitoring my values on a daily and a weekly basis, and I put numbers next to them. So, for example, connection. So today I'd rate it 10 would mean I did and lived absolutely, you know, everything I could have done in my whole day, from the place of connection, whatever that means on so many levels. 0 would mean I did absolutely nothing. But what I haven't really thought about too much, it's almost like I know them, but I've not really thought it through and if you like, you know, made it explicit, is what she calls some of the behaviours around each particular value. So I was thinking about this. So, for example, connection. She talks about what are key behaviours that you know that need to be happening. Hi, Ross. Need to be happening for you to be able to be fundamentally at the core and integral to what's important to you. With connection, I've put behaviours like calling key people, making time in my diary, for people that are important to me, but to do really constructive things, things that I know they'll enjoy, that they'll like, that, you know, will feel sort of special. I've also got what she calls, it's interesting the wording she uses, slippery behaviour is what she calls slippery. And so I put here a slippery behaviour that is trying to show I'm valuing connection, but it may not be quite, you know, supporting me moving forward. For example, could be overextending myself, trying to be, you know, everything to everyone all of the time. So that could be, you know, something that you know you're trying to do is important, but actually you overextend it the other way. Another value around openness. So behaviours that would support that. I've got things like learn new things, saying earlier on about other cultures, read things perhaps I wouldn't normally read, watch different programmes, to, you know, to really open my mind up to things maybe I wouldn't normally do. Now, learning a new language, a new skill, again, they're really opening up really new important things. Now, if you like, you know, what I call a slippery behaviour related to that could be that you almost start to begin to think, oh, you know, you need to be everything to everybody, and you almost start to do things because you think you need more knowledge, or you think, oh, I need, for example, another qualification to my bow. that could be deemed as, you know, in her, Brené Brown's language, a slippery behaviour, because it doesn't necessarily mean that it's, hi Wendy, it's fulfilling something that, you know, really serves a purpose and that is really true and integral to how you're living from a fulfilling, you know, sort of passionate life as well. So it's just interesting, this concept, and you know, through the week, you know, have a go at that, you know, really begin to dig deep and identify some peak or some low experiences. Ask yourself questions around what did it bring for you, or what did it take away, so that you can identify some of those key values. But then more than that, do what I was just sort of thinking about there, which is consider what are the behaviours that you associate with that particular value and supporting you to move forward in a real fulfilling way, and what you might consider, you know, these slippery behaviours. They're not bad behaviours, but they're things that you can fall into the trap of, and really when you dig deeper, they're not necessarily the things that are enabling that value to move forward. Now, part of the, you know, the reason that she's talking about values being integral to courage is she's talking about the fact that the more you are integral, you have integrity to what's important for you, and the more you make your decisions in life to come from that place and use them, if you like, as your, you could use words like your compass or your anchor, the more secure and grounded you will feel in making some of those decisions, or the actions you're taking, the conversations you're making. And if you've got what I call, you know, a bit of a wobble around the decisions you might be choosing to make, or the conversations that you might be feeling a little bit, oh gosh, you know, I really need to say this, but you know, you're feeling a little bit unsure inside, or you just need to build up a little bit of confidence and courage to do it, then keep revisiting those values that are important. And she talks about, you know, to know your values is to literally KNOW. To know your values is to know yourself. When there are no values, then there is no self. And that's quite interesting. She was talking about this, you know, this strength that comes from the knowing of the values, versus when you're not really demonstrating or showing that, or you're not really clear about that yourself, that will, you know, come across to others. Now, different, you know, another conversation which I won't have today, but I found that also really quite interesting, because, you know, as a lot of you are aware, my own business is called No Limits, KNOW, but there is a NO in the to know, and it's there are no limits, but actually there's a paradox in that, because you also need to know your limits. So I found this notion of what she was referring to know and the being no, quite interesting. So, you know, I may sort of sorry guys, oh I'm saying sorry as if I've knocked you all on your head. So I just knocked the knocked the stand and the pedestal over your back. You never really went away, did you? But there you go. So yeah, I was getting enamoured, moving my hands around a lot. So when I was talking about my values that are quite key and important, one of the values that is really key and important to me, and certainly also connects to some of the work that I do on many fundamental levels, is about learning. That's learning for me, it's enabling you know, learning in others, and what that opens up in the world. Learning is a massive value for me. And some of you will perhaps be aware that previously I've read some key words and values from Spirit at Work cards, and it's by somebody called Lance H.K. Secretary. So this one's called Learning. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes, and I'm literally going to read this passage from the book, and just allow it to sort of land and resonate, and, you know, see what it means for you. It may also be at times, you know, I read something and you might think, oh, it doesn't quite land for me, I'm not sure about that. And it might make you think of something else that is important to you in the process of thinking to yourself, not sure about that. And I want you to know that, you know, that's equally fine, by the way. You know, when we notice something doesn't quite land for us, there can still be learning that comes from that. So learning. Let me learn from the mastery of others. Let me transcend my own experience and find new pathways to knowledge. Let me accept different perspectives, try new methods and contemplate new visions. May I always walk on the path toward mastery, approaching each pebble, each obstacle, each crevice as an opportunity to increase my capacity and to deepen my wisdom. May I take what I learn from mastering each challenge and strengthen my approach to the next. May I always guide others whom I meet on the learning path, lovingly and gently sharing wisdom. Learning is our shared journey in love. And that last line, learning is our shared journey in love, something about that really sort of touching. So I'm going to read to you a little bit about what it then goes on to say about learning. It says the dictionary defines leading as showing the way, but teaching as showing how to. So therefore it talks then about teachers showing learners how to learn. Now it's interesting because I agree that that's how I think it at its best it really can be, and I want it to be like that. I'm not sure every person who's been through an education system would say that they were shown how to learn as opposed to acquire knowledge, to pass tests and qualifications. But again, that's up for debate. But at its best, it's saying teachers are about showing learners how to learn. And it says to acquire greater mastery, this learning must come from masters in person and through their teachings. Mastery is never perfect, just as there's no perfect knowledge or wisdom. Knowledge and wisdom are always incomplete. Therefore, continuous learning, that is, lifelong learning, is essential if continuous mastery is to flourish in all areas of our work and personal lives. Notice that it's about learning. Learning is an attitude. By definition, learning is altered behaviour because we're always altered, even if only a little, through learning. The skinny branches of learning bring temporary feelings of insecurity because we suddenly realise how much we have to learn. We are all ignorant about some things, it's only a matter of degree. But learning has a big payoff. It can lead to self-esteem because when we commit to learning, the result is greater mastery, and increased mastery leads to improved self-esteem. We feel in charge, we feel good. These feelings lead to more exhilaration, and this illuminates the soul. Few prizes are more fulfilling for the spirit. Life's most important skill is learning how to learn. In the knowledge era, constant learning is a season ticket to the game of life, and experience is one of the greatest teachers. But experience has a hidden danger. It teaches us how to be better at the same thing. Often this does not serve our learning need, and we must step outside of our existing paradigm by learning something entirely new. And I mentioned that earlier on about the learning new things, being open to new things, new languages, new courses, new places, new people. The more we reach out and stretch and do new things, hi Gaina, the more we'll actually be able to cope with change when it actually sort of comes as well. And it says, change is not something that only affects other people. It will eventually redesign every corner of the landscape of our lives. This is especially true when it comes to new technologies, and our lifelong learning should lead us to continual personal development that ensures we're always relevant to the changing world. And then it goes on to say the most important fringe benefit is no longer healthcare or a pension. It is the right to learn, which is an inoculation against irrelevance. I could read that again. It is the right to learn, which is an inoculation against irrelevance. Confucius wrote, "Learn as though you would never be able to master it. Hold it as though you would be in fear of losing it." And read that again. Learn as though you would never be able to master it. Hold it as though you would be in fear of losing it. And then it goes on to talk about commitment to a practice of lifelong learning. No, that's certainly a path that, I mean, I've only ever been on, but I've always believed very strongly that I, continue to learn and be open. And I do believe, if you are open in that way, it really needs to be to the day you die. And it says, those who commit to a practice of lifelong learning can rest easy, I'm not sure about that, but knowing that they will stay relevant and young, all of which results in personal evolution, the opposite of personal irrelevance. That is why learning is good for the soul. Learning leads to regeneration. I like to think that actually comes out in the face. The body as well. I tell you what, if all my learning came out in that way, you wouldn't be worried about buying creams and all sorts of things. And then it goes on to say, everything and everyone is a teacher, and often the greatest learning can come from meditation, dreams, prayer, and from sharing with other people. Learning is an essential fuel for the soul, propelling it to a state of expansion, inspiration, and grace. Creating opportunities for learning leads to the development of a learning society. And then Annie Besant wrote, by a willingness to learn and not by dogmatism, the love of the spirit is increased. The roads are many, but the goal is one, and that is realised by every soul that really seeks for the divine. And then whenever I've read this from this particular book, there's many different values in here. There's always a question at the end. So the question that it poses, I'm going to, sort of read out loud, and for you to take, if you like, that question away with you to ponder on, is it says, how can I become deeply and sufficiently committed to learning? So I'll read that out again. How can I become deeply and sufficiently committed to learning? So as I said, that came from my sharing of what values are about, and why values, that your own values are integral to you developing your sense of courage and your ability to be able to make the right decisions, to be able to have those challenging and difficult conversations at times that you may need to have, not just as much with yourself as it is with your children, your partner, your colleagues, everybody in all sort of walks of life. Now, as always, for those of you who have been on the calls before, I've got poems that I've created over a long period of time, and there's two poems that are my own that I've written that I'd like to share with you today. The first is called What Matters. So what matters? I'm in pain. I'm here to have my pain managed. How do you manage your pain? I carry mine. I hold mine. I stroke mine. I scream out mine. I talk to mine. I breathe through mine. I cry through mine. I feel like I've come home. I'm in a place of peace, of acceptance, of relaxation. I'm letting go of my anxiety. What are you looking for? I'm looking for answers. I'm looking for chocolate milk. I'm looking for somewhere to put my feet up. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. Well, touch wood, that's if I'm still here. Why are you here? What's your name again? It doesn't matter. Does it matter? Well, what does matter? Feelings matter. How you've lived your life matters. Cool, iced water matters. The gentle touch that shows you are loved, that matters. Your faith matters. My hope matters. Love matters. Love really matters. And my second poem I'm going to read, it's called Brief Encounter. I'm dying. We're all dying. I'm sick. We're all sick to some degree. I need you. We all need someone. I want you. I want to find myself. Myself and I, you and I, you and me and you. Me, between, you. Like shadows passing, just touching in brief moments of. Reaching out, extending, pulling back, withdrawing. What are you drawing? I'm drawing my last breath. I've been sitting very still, present each given moment, watching each bud begin to bloom. The bud opening and flowering, flowering and blossoming, beauty to behold. You really don't need much. You don't need half of what you think. Kids are healthy. Someone who loves you, that's all. The ice cold water is the nectar on my lips, moist and cool to the touch, feeding my lips, soft and supple as they absorb the liquid nectar, breathing life into my lips. Lips for my butterfly kisses, lips for the gentle touch on your face, lips to move when I tell you I love you, when I tell you I will miss you, lips that will soon lose their colour as I draw my last breath, lips that will continue to breathe on others, lips to pass life on, lips that breathe life into others. So those are my two poems. Hope that so far, if you've been you might have started at the beginning with me, you might have come in so far through. As I said, guys, earlier, if you haven't started at the beginning, as you know, just go back and watch it at some points. For those of you who haven't been on one of my calls before, I always end. It's become a bit of a signatory. I always end with a song that I've chosen, and sometimes it becomes very clear to me what song I need to choose, and other times it doesn't until really close to time. But every single song has some kind of meaning in some way. If you've listened to them before, some are very quiet and very melodic, some are very sort of, rhythmy and upbeat. Others are, uplifting in different ways. So I'm just about to put a little bit of music to mine now. Thank you, Karen. Karen's just shared very thought-provoking poems. Thank you. So just bear with me, guys. I'm going to play. I know that some of you were very aware of this song, and please feel free. And just imagine I'm picturing. I know, obviously, I see lots of names that come up that are watching, which is fabulous, by the way. Really means a lot to me. Please feel free to move along, sing along with me. bear in mind I can't see you, so guess what? If you want to stand on the, the table, if you want to dance naked, I don't care. Other people around you might, or they might not. so, you ready for this, guys? Sun, spirits move me every time I'm near you, whirling like a cyclone in my mind. You're my lifeline, angel of my lifetime, answer to all answers I can find. Baby, I want you, come into my arms. Let me feel the wonder of all of you. Now, and hold on fast. Could this be the magic at last? Hi, Rosie. Sun, it's gone, by the way. Sun, take me high upon a hillside, high up where the stallion meets the sun. I could love you, yeah, build my world around you, never leave you till my life is done. Baby, I want you, come into my arms. Let me feel the wonder of all of you. Could it be magic now, and hold on fast? Could this be the magic at last? Whoa, 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 time. Whoa, 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 take me. Whoa, 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 time. Whoa, 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 could it be magic now, and hold on fast? Could this be the magic at last? Baby, I want you, come into my arms. Let me feel the wonder of all of you. Could it be magic now? Boop, 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 boop. And sorry, I was laughing then towards the end. I was looking at Karen's comment saying, you do make me laugh. Well, that's good, because I tell you what, we need to laugh at times, guys, especially in our current times. So I'm glad that I made some of you laugh. Glad that I made some of you think a little bit about some of the things I was sharing, and some of you said you found the poems really thought-provoking. I know one of my last poems, one of my cousins said it actually really moved her, because it made her think of her dad. And that's the thing about poetry, I think it's very personal, it can mean one thing to one person and something completely different to somebody else, so that really means a lot. So I just want to say, guys, as always, I know it sounds really clear. Sometimes I think, oh, it's cliched because I hear myself saying the same thing, but the genuine thing is, it really does mean something to me. That's the thing. I say the same thing because it really matters. And when I see so many people come on the live and taking your time out and listening to me and really reflecting and making comments and sharing with me what your thoughts are, that just that's just enough. Do you know what I mean? It's really sort of uplifting and really touches my heart as well. So yeah, so thank you. Have the rest of next few couple of days, whatever that brings for you. I will do my midweek live. It'll be on Wednesday at 4, but I will also, you know, sort of as always, put my sort of reminders up as well. So thank you guys, love you loads, and speak to you very soon. Okay, speak to you later, bye.